JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Goodness, you know what? I contemplated whether or not to even put together a video from the standpoint that there's just nothing really new going on. We do know that yesterday, Monday, the 27th, the PPP2 did get in full force, but then I guess there was some kind of a clog or some issue late yesterday afternoon, and it's probably just due to the overwhelmness that caused there to be then delays in getting applications in. I will say this as a backup plan: if you're at a larger bank and you're still unsure of things, you can leave things with them in the queue, but you might consider reaching out or finding a smaller bank in your area. How do you know if it's a smaller bank? How do you know if it's a credit union? Well, for credit unions, they will actually pretty much typically have it in the title of the bank. And then for the smaller banks, if you're looking for one in the area, if you go to just look at their info and their branches, you know, obviously this isn't an official way to do it, but I'm telling you the kind of, you know, maybe what they call the decision that you can make on the street, which is this: if they have 2, 3, 4, you know, branches, probably a small bank, and you can reach out. A lot of the smaller banks are making it known on their website that they are taking on new clients. The smaller banks did get, as well as the credit unions, each of those classifications of banks, a special set aside of $30 billion for the PPP funding. So it would be worth it, if you're unsure about your bank, to, like I just said, start a new relationship, reach out to them, put together the information, see what it is that they're requiring, set up a portal with them. I don't think you even have to play games with them. You can just say, hey, I'm at a larger bank. I'd like to see if you're able to help me because they didn't help me in the first go around, or I haven't heard anything, or whatever the case is. Now, I will say this: once you decide you are going to, quote unquote, put in application, as in allowing a secondary bank to submit, you do need to give notice to the first bank that you do not want them to submit your application. So there's a minor risk there that you'll have to contemplate, which is, do you withdraw the application somewhere else where maybe you're in the queue, and put it into the hands of a smaller, newer bank? So I will tell you this, and you just really can't rely on it, right? Because I'm in Oklahoma and it's an individual set of circumstances. But the smaller banks here are getting things put through and submitted and approved by the SBA, like approved by the SBA, which means it's going to be funded, you know, almost same day. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt, other than to say, if you wait till the end of the week to start the process with a smaller bank, that wouldn't really do much for you, because you probably wouldn't be able to apply until early next week, and the funds may be out even for the smaller banks. So long story short, start building another relationship with a bank if you just feel like you're not getting anywhere, because maybe by the end of this week, you can just say, you know what, smaller bank, you have everything. I've gotten an account set up with you, whatever the case is, whatever they require, let's submit. And then I'm sure the smaller banks will be able to tell you. I talked with somebody on Sunday, and they're talking to a smaller bank, and they said, well, we've only got 27 of them. So we'll get you in. You'll be number 28. We do a first come, first serve, which is how it's supposed to be for the SBA. And, you know, he got funded the same day. So anyways, at the end of the day, gosh, you know, it's just one of those where, what's the saying, you know, bird in hand is worth two in the bush. So you're kind of, it's like, well, do I have two apps at a bank that hadn't done anything for me? And do I put in an app and withdraw that app with the bank that I haven't been dealing with? So tough decisions to make. Those that have been at PayPal, I'm disappointed that I've been given and forwarded emails that people have received from PayPal saying that somehow they didn't qualify or they didn't have credit that qualified or something to that effect. And that's not how the PPP works in any way, shape, or form. The law indicates very clearly banks list it as a zero risk, and it's automatically approved when it arrives. So I don't know if there was some special provisions on PayPal. I know that last week I had a number of people during one of my live shows, which I do Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time from 4 to 5, that there was a kind of a big push of, hey, I'm going to Kabbage. Hey, I just went to PayPal. Hey, I just submitted my PPP. I'm only just telling you that from the standpoint of, if you're with PayPal, then get after figuring out some information. If you're with a bank and you feel like you're in queue, you want to stay in queue, don't just email the bank. Try and call them. Stay on top of it. There's nothing wrong with it. They're working for you. They're making a fee off of it, 5%, which I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but what I'm saying is they work for you. They're making money off of your application. So however you're comfortable in getting through to them and how you can make sure that somehow they're keeping you in mind. These banks that are doing this random application, I don't really follow it. I don't know that I don't know that it's like illegal, we're calling the police. But this is meant to be a first come, first serve, as in it is directed to be a first come, first serve. The SBA has said it is first come, first serve. So I don't know if there's, some of these larger banks with portals somehow can't keep up with when people loaded up their documents or when they're complete enough to be able to submit. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but if you're with a bank that's doing a random and they've got thousands, I don't know. I really cannot tell you what you need to do. I'm not telling you what you need to do. I'm just saying maybe you look at other options. And the reason I'm not telling you that is, just to be frank, I don't know your circumstances. I don't know the documentation. I don't know the bank area. I don't know who's who in your area. And so I don't want to tell you to do something and then it not work out for you, because I would literally feel terrible. Even though I don't know who you are, I would feel absolutely terrible if you didn't get your funding. So maybe you come up with a backup plan. Maybe you push. Maybe you do both. But I don't think there's going to be another round. Just a quick note on stimulus checks. I still have a number of clients that haven't received them. And then on the EIDL, I've been refreshing it every I don't know, at least every 20 minutes. And on the EIDL Advance on the SBA website, it still just says lapse in appropriations. And I've just read, probably just like you, that the SBA did indicate that yes, yesterday the 27th, they have reopened the EIDL Advance program, but they have so many applications from round one that need to be funded that they're going through those applications first. And then once those applications have been put into play, so to speak, funded, then I'm assuming they're going to open it back up. Will they run out before they can even open it up? I hope not. I did read somewhere that, they had 10 billion before, and it was maybe 40 billion that was requested. So, gosh, who knows? I don't know if that's true or not. I don't remember where I saw that. It was just in an article. So anyways, keep an eye on the EIDL. I really do feel like you can get the EIDL and the PPP as long as you're using them for different purposes. That's a completely different set of circumstances than compared to PPP-1. Okay, PPP-1, there was a classification of EIDL on April 3rd or before. This is a different classification of EIDL in the sense of how it affects things. So even if you're disclosing you got an EIDL to the bank, or they're requesting if you had filed, the way I understand it is that if you can show that you used it for purposes other than payroll, insurance, rent, utilities, retirement match, interest, If you can show that you used it for other purposes, then you get it. You don't have to pay it back. And know this, the EIDL Advance is designed not to pay it back. So let me correct what I'm saying so it really sinks in. The EIDL, unless you receive it incorrectly, like you shouldn't have qualified for it, somehow you answered a question wrong and you got money and you really didn't qualify for it, okay? Then you'll have to figure out those circumstances, contact SBA. But what I am telling you is that if for some reason you get an EIDL and you're not using it for other purposes, you still don't have to pay back the EIDL, but it will still reduce down the amount of your PPP that will be forgiven, okay? It's not an automatic like it was before where it was gonna automatically reduce down the amount of forgiveness. This would just be that if you got an EIDL, which the bank's gonna know because SBA is gonna know because PPP and the EIDL both come from SBA, okay? So it's not like you're gonna get to forgiveness time and you're gonna go, oh, I hope they didn't know. They're going to know, and you're going to want to disclose it. And in essence, you'll want to be able to show that, yes, I got this EIDL money, and then I used it for these other purposes. How do you prove that? I mean, be imaginative, which is, you know, I got this money in here, and I received these bills, and I allocated it to that. Maybe you do something in QuickBooks. You know, I have a QuickBooks video, neon green, says QuickBooks in the thumbnail. I address EIDL and the triple P and how you record it. So just, you know, don't throw your hands up and go, well, how do I do that? How do I do it? Figure out a way to do that. I don't know how you keep your books. I don't know how you track your income or your expenses. If you have money that's, you know, a special bank account for your PPP, if that's how the banks worked it, then it's easier to show, well, when I had these expenses in the operating, I moved money over from my PPP. You know, the EIDL is going to be direct deposited into your operating account. So, you know, you're just going to have to figure that one out based on your, the way that you do your books. And so I have received a lot of questions on that. And I know that there's still like an uncertainty of, oh, I don't want to do it wrong. And I don't think you really can do it wrong. It's just that when you show up, think of this. How would you believe somebody if they came and they said, okay, hey, here's the expenses I used for the EIDL. Here's the expenses that I used for the PPP, okay? Some stranger just walks up that you've given money to and you're trying to figure out how much they owe you back, and they don't owe you anything back if they've used it appropriately. So how would you show that person other than, hey, I swear, you know, a hand on the Bible on my mom's, you know, grave that, you know, this is proper and I promise you, okay? I'm not talking that, this isn't second grade. But, you know, what would you present? It'd be, okay, here are some bills that we had. The money came in. We allocated this money to that, right? I mean, maybe if you got $2,000 and you if you owe a vendor more than $2,000, you send, okay, hey, I sent this check for $2,000. That's our EIDL. And then I sent a separate check, you know, to represent the remainder of it. Okay. So just, you know, get imaginative on how you're going to go about that versus wanting to be helpless with it or confused. Just now it's time to buck up. You got the money or you're getting the money. And now you need to focus in on using it for what it was meant for the next 8 weeks. And you don't have to freeze on it, right? Good intentions typically will lead to good results. And if you're using it for payroll and you're using it for rent and utilities, you don't have to freeze necessarily and go, well, shoot, you know, I just got the money and I have a payroll. How should I do this? Well, if you're using it for payroll, using it for payroll. But at the end, the forgiveness is going to be based on what the actual payroll was. So you can let it be a mind bender for you, and then now you're not going to do anything, or you can just then, you know, kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, so I have money, and the way that I'm using the money is the money hit my bank account and I'm using it for payroll. Okay. I don't know if it's payroll during the 8 weeks or not, but I'm using it for payroll. Okay, well, the SBA hasn't given us any other guidance, so you're using it for payroll. It says use it for payroll, you're using it for payroll. You're using it for health insurance, rent, utilities. Well, what if the period was before the 8 weeks, whatever? But you're using it for payroll, okay? You're using it for the purpose. Now, this is where the mind bender can happen, and you just have to take a step back and just tell yourself, I'm not going to let my mind be bent. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're good at math. It doesn't matter if you're good at accounting. What you can follow is a concept here, which the concept is this. I have cash. I'm using it for payroll. Now, when I go and I'm going to forgiveness, I'm going to say, here is my payroll that occurred during the 8 weeks, right? So what's interesting is, you know, when I get the questions, they're like, hey, I have this payroll that occurred before, so I'm getting ready to pay this, but in that payroll period, you know, I've got, if it's 10 work days, you know, 8 of them were in a period before, and only 2 days is during the 8 weeks, okay? But then when we get to the forgiveness part, all of a sudden, it seems like brains are freezing up, but you already did it on the front side. Like you already know that 2 days of that payroll that you just paid for was in the 8 weeks. So it's just the same concept. You're just on the other side of the fence where you go, okay, so when the 8 weeks is up, you know, here was the payroll that happened, like not paid for, right? Like happened, occurred, just the same way you go, well, there was 8 days before and there was 2 days during. So you're going to look at your payroll reports. You're going to go, what was the payroll that was paid in the 56 days? And then that's what it is. And then when you get to the end, they're going to say, I want to see your documents on what your payroll was during that time period, okay? The way I understand it now, because we don't have any other guidance, it's not, well, I want to see that you traced that dollar to payroll that occurred during the 8 weeks, okay? It's the money came in, you used it for payroll, boom, period, the end.